Well, I was working in a hospital and there'd been a bit of gastro around, and I had a few belly aches and a few tummy symptoms, but I didn't really pay any attention to them.
Hey Mum, can I watch TV?
And then one day, John was actually away. He was at a conference and I was at home and I hadn't really slept. I'd had some abdominal pain overnight. And the next morning I was sort of feeling around and I felt like I had a big lump in my tummy. So I went to the emergency department and they did a CT scan, and that's where they realised that I had a mass in my tummy. I was told after the CT scan that I had a tumour, most likely, but they didn't know what sort of tumour it was until the biopsy results came back about 5 days later, and at that point I was told I had ovarian cancer. I didn't really know much about what the prognosis meant at that point. It was all a bit of a blur, really.
Don't drop them, Mum.
You know, I quickly Googled it and it didn't sound good to me. Joanne stayed overnight and I guess we just waited for the call, and after about 6 or 8 hours they said, oh well, you know, we're still going, and then after about 10 hours they were still going, and in fact the operation took about 12 hours. And yeah, she was in intensive care for 5 days after that.
I'm now on my third lot of chemo. That was nearly, so it was about 3.5 years ago it was that I was diagnosed. And my journey since then hasn't been too terrible. I've led a fairly normal life, apart from the chemotherapy, I suppose. I had one lot of chemotherapy about a month after the surgery, and then I was disease-free for 12 plus months after that. Then I had another lot that year, and then I'm just now having more chemotherapy now. But, you know, you just get on with life. I wouldn't say that it's the main part of life, it's just something that's there. People always give you advice about, oh, you're going to get a funny taste in your mouth, or you're going to feel sick, or you're going to... And I think each time it's been different. The first time I got quite a lot of joint pain and some nausea, and my hair fell out with the drugs I was on. The second time I was a bit nauseous and tired, but nothing dramatic. And this time I'm having the same drugs as I had the first time round, but smaller doses, and I'm having them weekly instead of 3 weekly. And I don't have any of the joint pain I had this time, and I'm about 4 or 5 months in and I've still got a little bit of hair left. It's falling out, but not as quickly as it did last time.
It is the elephant in the room. It does sit with you. It does affect the sort of decisions you make. Joanne, she's the most resilient person I know, so you know she'll be able to cope with every single eventuality, and it's so much better that, you know, she got it rather than I got it, because our house would be a lot different. But
yeah, you wouldn't have got any sympathy.
no, but it's just you know, she's belittling it even now. I mean, she had to have a stoma for the first 12 months, which just wasn't pleasant. There are highs and lows, you know. So that first time it came back was just, you know, went through a bit of a bad patch there, and now this time I'm thinking of it more as a kind of chronic condition, which it'll go and then it might come back and it might go again. And the hope, you know, obviously, is that every time it comes back, it'll always go again.
The problem is they're more expensive while you're over there.
Yes, it's cheaper to
So
get
the
them here.
the 7-day pass, you can't buy while you're in Japan.
Which after?
Buy that
Pest dose?
externally.
Yeah, there's more. There's like 10 more. It's just they didn't put in place.
What do you think for your religion?
It was big implications for the kids. We've never really not told them anything, so they've always known up front. They had a lot of trouble. I mean, initially we were thrown into it because I was straight into hospital, so there was no lead-in time for them either.
He's doing 11 push-ups every day.
Yeah, 11, 20.
Particularly Ben, who was in year 4 at the time I was diagnosed, our youngest one, really struggled. He didn't feel like he could tell any of his friends either. He was really embarrassed that his friends would find out. Whereas Alex was that little bit older and he coped with it a bit better, I think. He had a counsellor at the school who he could talk to, who was good. Ben had a counsellor at the hospital, a psychologist who was lovely to him, and that's probably what pulled him through. But as far as roles in the household, the kids pick up a lot more now than they were before, and you do too. You come home from work and do a lot more housework and cooking and cleaning and stuff. The kids particularly, and you, I suppose, are really quite protective. I really notice that, which is lovely. But I sometimes think, well, it's not fair that they should have to be.
I must admit, it really threw me for a six. Mind you, she's a wonderful person and she's very positive. So that helped.
Have you found out duties?
And then you go into action stations, into action mode. You think, well, right, what can we do? Let's get on with things. And it's amazing how you do that. You think you're just going to collapse and fall in a heap, but you don't.
When she was having the surgery, and we all sat here actually, but trying to keep the boys, I guess, entertained by cooking or just your normal things. You just got to keep going. It's hard. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You can hope that the chemo will do its job. But you don't know. You can hope for the best.
I'm a nurse. I was working as a nursing unit manager of a transitional care unit prior to my diagnosis. I had 6 months off just after I was diagnosed, and then I went back to work, but not in the same capacity. I only felt up to working 3 days a week, and I worked in that capacity up until about a month ago. I stopped because I just was finding that I was getting really tired, and going into this lot of chemo, I just wanted to spend more time being healthy. It's always there in the background, but it's not the major focus of, I mean, I would hate to think that my major focus of life was a cancer. Major focus is just all the other millions of things that we all do all day, every day. My sister, she lived in Japan for a few years and she speaks Japanese, and we've always talked about going back there, and we've never got around to it. And we actually went on another trip last year. We went to France and Italy, and when we got back we said, well, what about this other trip that we've always been planning on doing, and we booked it. Well, because I was just under 40 when I was diagnosed, the hospital suggested I have genetic testing done, which I did, and they found that I was BRCA breast cancer 1 gene positive. My advice to women with gynaecological cancer would be not to let it overtake your life, but to make a conscious decision to enjoy every moment of your life, and to do things that you've been thinking about doing, and spend the time with your family and your friends and enjoy life.